Hello, Squirrel Tribe. Welcome back. First, I would like to say thank you to every single person who over the last video or two commented about my new haircut. I appreciate your positive words very much. Thank you. I actually just washed it and let it air dry, so you can see I do have naturally curly hair. Not sure if this is a good look or the straight is better, but either way, thank you for all of your nice comments. So I saw randomly a video with Candace Owens. For those of you who aren't really sure about Candace Owens, because I wasn't sure about her in the beginning of knowing who she was either. I was like, who is this woman? She came across as angry to me a lot of times, but the more I watch her, the more I hear her, the more I'm like, well, she's just very opinionated and holds on to her beliefs and is not going to back down because somebody may not agree with her. And I'm like, actually, I have mad respect for Candace Owens and the way that she presents herself and the way that she talks about topics and the way that she is, you know, this is how this is for me and you will not change my mind on it just because you see it differently. Now, I don't always agree with that. I do believe that sometimes people's views should be able to change if you're presented with new facts or thoughts or emotions or opinions that make you see things differently. Changing your thought process on something is not wrong at all. Let's just go ahead and put that out there 100%. But I saw this out of nowhere. It's old. It's not anything new, but it's this thing with Candace Owens on some show called Rising with Crystal and Buck. It was like an interview that these people had with Candace Owens, and it was when Trump was president, right? And the whole point behind it, from what I gathered, there's a ton of stuff all over TikTok. If you just literally type in Candace Owens, Crystal and Buck, you're going to see all these different TikTok things up there, or even on YouTube probably, and maybe Instagram, other social media platforms. But the back and forth with how people feel when it comes to racism is interesting to me, because here you have a very educated, opinionated Black woman talking about how she called it white Democrats and white liberals are racist and they don't realize that they're racist. And of course that, you know, piqued my curiosity. I was like, I need to see more of this, because on the flip side, you have people saying that Republicans are racist. You have the word racist or racism being thrown around. It's not anything new. It's been a word that's been used probably for, you know, a few hundred years, very long time, if not longer than that, right? And I watched a little bit of this interview, and what I found interesting was what Candace Owens determines to be racist. Now, the woman that is interviewing her is a white woman who I'm guessing Candace is considering her a white liberal, okay? And Candace Owens is a Black Republican. And she says that this white liberal woman, in the interview, the lady says, how do you feel about the color in the White House? Like how much color there is in the White House, meaning, you know, non-white people. And Candace Owens basically said, you know, that's racist, right? To ask me that question. And I don't know if it's because I'm a white woman, but I had to go, what? Like, what? Like, I was confused for a second. So I watched a little bit more of this interview or whatever else. And basically, the way Candace Owens looks at it is, if you feel the need to bring up a skin color, then that's racist. And the interviewer, I guess her name is Crystal Ball, which is just funny to me. Crystal Ball, like she's, you know, a psychic or whatever. Anyway, she says, well, you're bringing in, you know, a lot of Black leaders, young African-American leaders into the White House and blah, 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 blah. And my mind immediately went, do you know how it would sound if somebody said, well, you're bringing a lot of white leaders and a lot of white, whatever. Weirdly, it looks differently when you throw in different races into it, right? I think that's how it's supposed to work. So if you can switch it around and take the word Black or African American out and put in white or Caucasian or Anglo-Saxon, or even if you put in, you know, Asian, or you put in Hispanic or whatever else, that gives it more of a racist tone. But I think that what Candace Owens is trying to say, and again, this interview was from a few years ago and it just popped up weirdly on my feed because YouTube is doing weird things where they show things from years upon years ago. And a lot of people get confused because they're thinking it just happened. And no, it was from 7 years ago or 10 years ago. Not quite sure what YouTube is up to with the whole old stuff. But anyway, what I think Candace Owens is trying to say is that as long as we're continuously focusing on what people look like on the outside, then it'll be hard for us as a country or as a civilization, honestly, to get over racism or racist based things. Now, it's always going to be weird to me to hear people say, I don't see color. But at the same time, it's understandable when people say I don't see color. But to say you don't see color means you don't see somebody for who they are, because everything about you makes you who you are. But I guess you wouldn't look at a white person and go, I don't see lack of color. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense, but either way, it's crazy how often race is brought into things. And especially when you're mixing now race and politics. And that happens a lot, like a lot. It used to be if you're a Republican or you're, from the South, then obviously you're racist. Or if you're a Democrat or you're from the North, then obviously you're a liberal, you're a tree hugger, you're, whatever else. All these different terms are thrown around based on skin color or based on political party preference. And it's kind of crazy that as adults, we still like point fingers and call names and do all these other things, when all you really have to say is that person's an idiot. Doesn't matter what color they are or whose political side they're on. If they're an idiot, they're an idiot. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we could just get back to calling people just random names, like instead of political names or skin tone names. But race is huge. It is brought up very, very often. And it's crazy. Kids, like my daughter, when she was in elementary school, when she first went into school, she would come home and tell me all about her friends, and never at any point in any of our conversations was what they looked like skin tone brought up. It was never, my black friend, my Asian friend, my Hispanic friend. It was always, this boy, this girl. And it was never skin tones until they get older and media starts talking about it, or parents and people around them start talking about it. Kids don't know to look at people differently based on skin color until it's put into their minds. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure a lot of you understand what I'm talking about. I personally want to say that I see skin color. I see all different kinds of things because it's what makes people who they are. I'm not blind, neither are you. However, if we were all blind, and I've said it from day one, if we were all blind, racism could not exist. You would not know what somebody looked like, so you couldn't be racist even if you tried. Racism wouldn't even be a word. Nobody would know what it was. There would be no definition for it because it could not be physically possible to be racist if everybody is blind and you can't see anybody. So that's just a thing. But anyway, this interview with Candace Owens, it's interesting because people will be like, well, as a black woman who is all about, not seeing color, is that why you married a white man? Or, why do you put down the black community? But she doesn't put down the black community. She just looks at all communities as the same a lot of the times. And I just think it's interesting what YouTube wants to show right now, which again is a Candace Owens interview from like 3 years ago about race and Donald Trump and things like that. Right now, before an election, when people are talking about, the races of people coming across the southern border and illegal immigration and what's going on in certain parts of the United States with, in the black community this, and in the Hispanic community that, and the Asian community that, but you don't very often hear in the white community. Does that make sense? Like, maybe it's because media is run majority wise by, white people, but you don't generally hear a differentiation, I feel like that's a whole word, between anything except for color, and they don't mention white very often. At least that's how it feels when you step back and kind of look at it. And it's interesting to me. And I wonder if the whole race thing will ever go away, if racism will ever go away, if talking about people's skin color will ever stop being a thing, if it'll be, you listen to black music, or you dress like a white guy, or you know what I'm saying? We put so much emphasis on a skin tone for all these different things that I guess it gives individuality to groups of people, but it also continues the divide amongst groups of people. I feel like there would be a much easier melting pot if it wasn't about, you know, how many Asians are there, or Hispanics, or Black people, or, you know, Indian people or white people. If it was just how many people are there. And it's a conversation that not a lot of people like to have, because it can be a awkward conversation to have. It can be one where people feel bad or guilty, or they feel like they're better than somebody else. Like, it's hard to have conversations about race without sometimes them going off the rails, because it is a very triggering conversation for a lot of people. You know, when they wanted to take out critical race theory out of school because, you know, they don't want to keep talking about slavery and how things happened and whatever else. And you have some people who are mad at the fact that there's kids today who don't understand where we are, why we are where we are, and where we started as a nation, like with segregation and everything else, and it literally being illegal for a, you know, white person and a Black person to be married and all these other things. They don't want to talk about it, because then the more you, according to a lot of different people, the more you talk about the way things were, the harder it is to move away from it and move into a new thing. But then you have people going, well, you're erasing history. You're getting rid of knowledge so that people don't know where they came from, and they don't understand what the world has gone through. A lot of books that are banned are books that, you know, are about racism or have the N-word in it, or things like that. And it's like I said, it's a very hard place to be in to say, I think we should not talk about it and just pretend like everything's always been great, versus we should talk about it and, you know, talk about the things that used to happen and, you know, see if it continues to push this divide. Everybody's going to think about it differently. Everybody's going to see things differently. And I feel like nobody's way of how they see it and how they feel about it and how they think about it is wrong, because it's your perception, your feelings, your whatever. I'm not going to feel the same way about it as a Black person, a Hispanic person, an Asian person, most likely, because and this is the whole point, I as a white person have not generally had to deal with the same things that other races have, and vice versa. You go to another country, you may deal with things that you've never dealt with over here because now you're in another country, and hopefully that makes sense. But either way, I just think it's interesting that around an election time, race seems to start popping up more and more. It's just very interesting to me. Like, the Black community is always going to vote Democrat. Well, there's so many Black Republicans. I mean, you've got Candace Owens, you have the Hodge twins or conservative twins, whichever way you want to go with them. You have a lot more that I can't think of names of right now, but there's so many people out there. And you have a lot of white Democrats, not just white Republicans. You have Asian people are on both sides, Hispanic on both sides. So it's interesting when you get closer to an election and the race starts to come up, and it's meant to divide to, you know, if you're white and you're not voting for so-and-so, then you're not good. If you're Black and you're not voting for so-and-so, then you're not good. And it's crazy to me that it's pushed that your skin should determine what party you align with or agree with or want in the Oval Office. It's definitely weird to me. But anyway, that's it. I know I didn't bring you anything groundbreaking today. It's just a conversation I wanted to have, because I like to have random talks with you guys, and I appreciate you for letting me have those talks. And I made my nose itch, like a hair touched it or something. But anyway, SquirrelTribe. I'll be back tomorrow with like news stuff, but thanks for letting me have this talk today. And I'd love your thoughts and opinions. Y'all know how this works. It's a community and I like our discussion. So jump in the comments and let me know your thoughts on all of this. And if you saw the Candace Owens interview on Rising with Crystal and Buck, I would love your thoughts on that too. So that is all for now. I love you immensely, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.